Comedy Film Nerds Podcast.
It's hard. I went out and saw The Big Sick, which we talked about, which I saw, in anticipation of Kumail coming on our podcast. I saw it, and I loved it. I mean, I loved it for all the reasons we talked about before. I particularly loved Ray Romano's performance in it.
That's what I keep hearing.
Right,
Every
He's
single
really good.
thing coming out of his mouth made me laugh. Like, he'd just be drinking a glass of water and be like, water tastes different here than in Chicago. I mean, in Chicago than in New York. I started laughing. Like, no matter what he said, I just thought it was a great performance. I've always loved him as a stand-up. Loved him in Everybody Loves Raymond as a four-camera, sitcom, that sort of a star. But I think he really, and maybe it was his turn on Parenthood and whatnot, and just getting able to sort of flex those acting muscles or go in that direction. He was amazing. I mean, I actually thought he outshone Holly Hunter, and I like Holly Hunter a lot. Big fan of hers. I think he outshone her in this, and I think I thought Kumail's family was great. They were the people they had to play his family. It just was a great movie, and I kept on thinking, I'm like, well, why is this different than Juno? Why is this any different than Little Miss Sunshine? Like, this movie could be, because it deals with health stuff and it deals with race and interfaith marriage, and just like making those decisions and growing up and whatnot. To me, I thought it was the best romantic comedy since 500 Days of Summer.
Oh, nice.
Okay.
And I started watching it and started thinking about it, and I was like, well, why shouldn't this be up like Juno won for Best Screenplay? Why couldn't this be up for Best Screenplay? And with sort of the Oscar list somewhat expanding, it might have a shot. Like, we might see one of our friends' movies, and he might be going to the Oscars as a result of this. Now, will he be up for Best Actor? Probably not. Will Ray Romano be up for Best Supporting Actor? Maybe.
Right.
Maybe, kind of like Arkin and,
Does Michael Showalter,
Right.
who directed it, does he?
First of all, I saw my Hello, My Name's Doris, and I loved it. Loved it. I mean, I'm such a fan of Showalter's. We've worked with him. He was on our Apartment 2F show back in New York. He played Ron Parker in Cheap Seats without Ron Parker. Our ESPN show, he played like the main guy in the show. And
I
came
like
back a
Hello,
few
My Name
times.
is Doris. I saw it. I like that movie.
I thought that movie was great. I'm a big Max Greenfield fan, and I mean, I think he did a great job with that movie, and I thought this built upon that. And he kind of just got out of the way and let the movie happen. He wasn't trying too much crazy stuff, although he did do some really unique and interesting things, and I thought it was shot very beautifully and tastefully, and it didn't get in the way of telling the story. It actually made the story better. So I think, will he be? I don't know if that movie can make it that far, but I do think it would be considered for Best Screenplay.
Right.
And maybe Ray Romano goes up for Best Supporting
cool.
Actor.
I mean, that's,
because the movie's going to make, right now it's like at $25 million, I want to say, okay, maybe a little bit more over the course. And it started out in 5 theaters. I mean, what I love about it is kind of the story of the way movies would get released in the 70s. Starts out in 5 theaters, and remember, if you got that one great review from that woman from like the Village Voice, I forgot the woman's name, I am forgetting her name right now, but like if she gave you a good review, boom, you were now wide.
Yeah.
Like,
Pauline Kael.
Paula Kael, that's right.
Thank you, Aaron.
So you got a Paula Kael, great
Or
Paula
an
Kael.
Elvis Mitchell review.
Right. So
But this is the new era is the social media buzz.
So I'm like, well, wait a minute now. Hold on a second. Maybe, okay, so starts in 5 theaters, does really well gets a good per theater,
Yeah, that never happens anymore because the
and it boomed out to like 325 theaters the second weekend, and it wound up making a lot of money, and then they expanded to 3,000.
Because the rollouts are so specific, and the movie theaters are so already booked with like the big blockbusters and
that's
stuff.
it,
So
especially in
a
the summer.
smaller movie doesn't have that room a lot of times to grow and find its audience. So,
And I know it's going to be hard for you guys to understand this, but I'm sure there are a lot of people out there who don't want to see the next superhero movie. They're just like,
well, I don't know what you're talking
know what I'm
about.
saying? Like, there are people out there who are like, fuck it, I can't, I don't know the difference between this and that.
There
and the
is
other.
counter programming.
So this is a bit of a counter program for those people who are like, it's not my bag. Now, I took my girls to see Wonder Woman. Our whole family, we saw Wonder Woman like 2 weeks ago.
Right.
So a couple weeks after
Fun time
the
at the
fact.
movies.
It
Fun family
was-
time at the movies.
and for young girls who are like, wow, powerful
Yeah,
woman.
my daughter loved it.
I loved it for the unapologetic she's a hero. She's a hero. We're not trying to be like, yeah, but, like everybody's kind of bending to make her seem better than she is, which sometimes it kind of does that. But she also was in a world where everyone's like, yeah, she's a hero. And the Amazon, that whole, culture and whatnot, where they're just badasses and they're cool. It's great for, I think, a 10-year-old and a 12-year-old, my two daughters, to see that and be like, yeah, you can do whatever you want.
Well, the thing I want to, and then we'll move on, but I do want to go and just that is a great point about the counter programming. And every summer, it can happen. You'll have movies like 500 Days of Summer or St. Vincent or something like that. That's like for people who are like, I don't want to see another blockbuster $150 million movie. It's great that these movies come in, and what my hope is because this started out small and has grown, that I hope people start, and Amazon and people like that go, hey, let's carve out some space so that these little...
Let's make a $5 million movie that could potentially. I mean, look, when all is said and done, and if this does get some Oscar buzz,
give it a theatrical release.
That's right. If this does get Oscar buzz, okay, because people still enjoy going to the movies.
Yes.
Okay, my mom in St. Louis went to go see. I was like, you gotta go see The Big Sick. Just do it to support our friends, and just do it because you, and she was like, it was packed. I couldn't believe it. She went to like the cool sort of artsy cinema in St. Louis, and it was totally packed. And she said it was a really great experience. She had a great time watching it, and I said, "This is what we all have to support.
Right.
We have to support movies like this because the blockbusters are going to keep coming out. They have to.
Sure.
And
they're going to do fine.
They're going to do great,
right?
Because mostly, a couple of them are not going to do well.
Yes, and they shouldn't.
Well, it's also like an animated movie that doesn't do well. You're like, oh, the story wasn't good. Because it's got to get through that first wave in order to then really. That's it.
Yep. So.
I shot first. Kitten heads across the land. Waiting for the show.